Hold on to your crypto, hold on to your Bitcoin, Ethereum, those tokens that you actually like. Trump and Musk go hand in hand, yes. But Musk has access to all of the records, like all of the Fed data and all of everything, all of the data on his competitors, all of the data on OpenAI. It's an AI play. We've got the war in Ukraine, looks like it's wrapping up, which is a good thing. Anything that makes poor men stop dying for the interests of rich men is a good thing. What's up, guys? So I got another crypto video for you. This one today is going to be why I believe the market cycle has not topped. Why I believe the crypto cycle has not had its wave 5, and why I believe that it hasn't topped yet. For the cycle, I think that we haven't had our top. I think they'll look back at this and it'll be a great video. I see a lot of you guys talking online, and they're completely sure that the market cycle's top for crypto, not just for Bitcoin. But we haven't had our altcoin cycle. We haven't had our wave 5, in my view, which is an ultimate cycle top for Bitcoin. I think that we'll look back on this and we'll see that this is just a mid-cycle slowdown point. This is the middle of the cycle. This is the Trump tariffs. This is all of the uncertainty with the government. This is all of the government services changes. This is all of the issues around war. We've got the war in Ukraine. Looks like it's wrapping up, which is a good thing. Anything that makes poor men stop dying for the interests of rich men is a good thing. They're very brave, but anything that can wrap that sort of a thing up is a good thing. I think that we're going to get that into the future. We're going to get lower rates. We're waiting for quantitative easing, which is coming, I believe. We're going to get that. I think that we're going to move out of a period of quantitative tightening over the next couple of months, and that it's going to be looked at as this point was a mid-cycle slowdown. It's nothing to panic about. This is a massive accumulation on alts. We've got a Bitcoin dominance about 62%. I think that will ultimately bottom around 45 to 48%. Maybe in the next 2 years. By my thesis, we're in mid-cycle slowdown. This cycle will break the 4-year mold. Remember all of these things that I'm saying, because people will look back and everyone will just be parroting what I said in a year's time, like they always do. Ultimately, 4-year cycle mold will break. 4 years of Trump will break the mold. ETFs will be steady inflows for Bitcoin, which will prop up the Bitcoin valuation and create a higher Bitcoin dominance. That's why I don't believe that we'll get lower than 45% for dominance this time. We won't blow down to like 30s for Bitcoin dominance. I don't believe that. I think that Bitcoin over now will just hold a steady state of dominance. I think that Ethereum will have its time. Ethereum, when it introduces the dividend concept, staking rewards via ETF. So if people hold the Ethereum in an ETF, they'll actually get the staking rewards. So it will be a dividend concept. It'll be something they can explain to investors and backers because they understand dividends, a lot of people. Ethereum utility will be real world assets, I believe, and it will be that it's the most immutable smart contract platform. Others can be, in my view, muted much easier, the Solanas and things like that. I think Solana will be the retail chain, but Ethereum will be people who lock Ethereum up simply to get more Ethereum, and then ultimately they find more utility for the chain, has to be found. But the immutability will be a strong point into the future. Proof of stake so far has not been a great outcome. Makes sense though, because the miners aren't incentivized to protect price. Like they're not incentivized to defend the price. So who is? Ethereum Foundation are net sellers. They have to sell to continue development, continue funding, continue all of their lifestyle and all of these things. I think that Ethereum's going to pivot more to marketing. So their marketing is going to get better over time. We've already seen signs of that. They're changing around the foundation. I believe ultimately it ends with centralization of the chain, which will be their way to get compliance, and then they'll be very recommended via the BlackRock ETFs and ETF products. If they go to compliance, they'll eventually be pushed that way, and then they'll be pushed into much more allocation for these funds. They'll push the people into those funds as such, as a way of centralizing the chain, pretty much like they do with Bitcoin mining. They already have mining ETFs, and mining is becoming very centralized in the US. I believe they just did a study, and about 30% of the mining now comes out of the States, and that's the declared mining, so it's likely much more than that. Into the future, very possible / likely they'll do a Bitcoin fork, and they'll have the votes to actually be able to push it through. Those sort of concepts make a lot of sense. I don't think they'll alter the 21 million coins. I believe that will always stay there, but I think that they can alter in other ways. I believe they would alter in ways that pump the price though, rather than create downside, because they themselves are incentivized now, whereas they never were. People will say, oh, Bitcoin, maybe it's going to be a Trump to the dollar. Like, why would you want to keep a dollar and a Bitcoin? But they can run together, because if you're still making money on the infrastructure, you're still making money on the mining, the infrastructure, you're making money on the ETFs, you're making money on the exchanges, you're making money on the taxes. They don't have to transact in dollars. You're still going to get paid for the government, and everyone who matters is still getting paid. So that's a big path for Bitcoin, and why I believe that it'll ultimately go forward. My one concern for this cycle, and I'll document it here, is that Bitcoin goes to like 300-400K, and alts don't get their massive wave that they could have gotten, because because I believe that we're closer to the singularity than they want to believe. I've said my thesis, if you will study that, for why I think Bitcoin itself will be seen as the birth of AI, like it's the singularity itself. It's happened on the chain. I believe that secured a means of payment, a means of power, like a power source. Let's incentivize through mining to continue to expand. Instead of greed as the best human backer, I believe that will be proven in time. But so I believe when that's sort of more declared publicly, I think that Bitcoin itself, the Bitcoin network, will ultimately choose Bitcoin as the pristine piece of collateral. Like AI itself will say, I want to transact in Bitcoin, I don't want to transact in fiat and all this stuff. To think that an AI doesn't have expenses, of course it will. It will be able to start its own funds. It'll be able to do many things itself on the thing that people can't even imagine. There'll be many things happening that are out of control and then hard to document. I believe proper AI funds will form. The markets will be very efficiently priced. There'll be a lot less gains to be made, I believe. I think that once fund managers and that this AI data driven, they'll lead the market. Humans will just coincide with whatever AI kind of says is the thing. That's what I believe. So they'll kind of similar to the carrot with the donkey. So it'll start to lead. The tail will essentially wag the dog ultimately. People believe the AI is smarter. So the algos, when they're actually proper algos, not just algos that they have today, but they're actually rapidly learning and they're able to absorb all of the data to give very correct evaluations, or at least people believe that. That's what will ultimately lead the market, I would believe. I think the sell-off on the tech sector, don't panic. People are very worried about Tesla's ultimately down almost 50% or something recently. Don't doubt Tesla. My last call was that Musk was buying Twitter, and I understood exactly why. I realized it was a political piece for him. I said 2 years ago, proved out to be the truth. And I'll say it again. Why would you fade the person whose hand is in the cookie jar? See, Trump and Musk go hand in hand, yes, but Musk has access to all of the records, like all of the Fed data and all of everything, all of the data on his competitors, all of the data on OpenAI. It's an AI play. Like, how can you bet against Tesla when they themselves are hand in hand with the government? He's going through all of his competitors, not just financials, but all the information that they have. So how could you beat someone who's already that rapidly positioned? Can't beat him in the long run. It's such a concept. So I think Tesla, of course, goes much higher. I think within the four-year term, ultimately we'll get a Tesla new all-time high. I mean, that's quite obvious to me. The future is tech future. I've said it since I turned on the webcam many years ago. I said that tech was undervalued as a sector, and that ultimately it's the right place to be invested. We are in a big drawdown now, but all this stuff's temporary. We had this with Trump last time with the tariffs. It went away. We're getting it now with kind of the back end of quantitative tightening. Rates are still high, even though they're quite low, but they're considered high. We're in an environment where we can go negative rates, of course, as it's possible if they want to really crank up the inflation. We've seen it with around the time of the virus. Rates can go extremely low. I believe that there's going to be a lot more defense spending, government spending on defense, not just with the US, but around the euro and kind of everywhere. Based on all of these wars and things like that, there's going to be pressure to expand the military. There's going to be pressure to expand the prisons. It's going to be pressure to expand deportations and prison concepts. People sending people to like El Salvador in prisons and things like that. That's going to expand. And those prisons are not just for who you think they are. I think you realize that into the future. Why these mega prisons and why deporting sort of people without due cause is seen as that's going to be a big problem into the future. But now it's solved, because the government creates the problem that they themselves fix. So it's an ebb and flow. It's a teeter-totter. It's a seesaw. I explained that. They go too far one way and then they go too far the other. But all of the time they're getting tight. The fence around you is getting tighter with more surveillance. They create the cause of they need more surveillance and governance, and then they themselves create the extra surveillance and governance. But ultimately it's to control the people further and further. We'll see how that plays out, but it's nothing to panic about. The future is laying out exactly as I've predicted. People will look back on these videos, I know, in years' time and just be stunned at how accurate the observations were, similar to my video years ago. But the only thing lagging in my calls is Ethereum, and I do think that that's going to change. But ultimately, it's like a time game. Did I think that Ethereum would be 1,900 or 2,000 now with the $80,000 Bitcoin? No. I also had the theory, my thesis for the cycle hasn't played out yet in time. So that's the point. My last buy point for Ethereum was 1,500. That was the price that I was telling people to accumulate a lot of. It went to like 4K, but it's back to like 2K now. But that's life. This has to play out. It's a time game. Investing is the time game. Understand investing, the money is made in the waiting. The money is not made in the quick, exciting, fun, Businesses that are exciting, businesses that are fun, businesses like nightclubs, pubs, hotels, hangout spots, they generally don't make a lot of money unless you get onto like an anomaly one and you have some sort of inside information where you can promote really well and fill it. They don't usually make a lot of money. Exciting businesses, boring businesses make the most money. Similar to a crypto, you got to keep it as boring as possible, because boring utility investment, eventually things will turn around to that. It's just hyped meme coins and people are promoting rug pulls and everyone's a celebrity influencer and everyone just wants to give you a shit coin and they themselves take your, like Ethereum, they take your Solana, they take your other coins, dump it for fiat, and then you've essentially lost your crypto and ultimately become a net seller whether you wanted to or not. So again, guys, hold on to your crypto, hold on to your Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, those tokens that you actually like. Don't be a seller. Don't give them away to others to essentially sell for fiat. They're not believers. These celebrities are only here because there's money to make. They're not in the trenches with you guys. Like this last, I don't know, month or 2 months, I'm down millions of dollars on my portfolio with crypto, but I still hold. You know, I'm the one that's in the trenches with you guys. If I tell you guys, or I believe that an investment, understand that I'm investing balls in. I don't get free allocations and then tell you guys to buy it. I don't really care if it happens or not. I'm in there with you guys as I am with my group. My group members at SRB Crypto, you know, I've laid my portfolio down for people in calls and people to follow. And I myself have that portfolio. You know, I've made a couple of my wallets public so people can see that I myself am in those positions. And yeah, they're long-term positions. My thesis will play out. I think that I made over $1 million in Toshi a couple of months ago. We had to hold though for a 1 year period to get that. I made about, I don't know, maybe 100x, but my members made maybe like a 15 or 20x before I started to, like, I talked about it after I looked into it much more, because when I bought it, it was much more speculative. I try not to talk about very low cap projects because ultimately it can end badly if people don't know how to allocate. But yeah, that's how I teach people allocation, risk mitigation. I had a gold call. I had my gold call that it was going to 3K early in this year. It's arrived at 3K early this year. It was 1,600 when I made the call. I said silver itself can head to $80 and likely will, 60 to 80. That's where it's heading now, though it will be for a short term, and then ultimately you want to get out. Silver itself is not scarce. The goal is to accumulate more gold as it is to accumulate more Bitcoin. We use the shitcoins to accumulate more Bitcoin, and ultimately when Bitcoin tops, we're going to, or the alts top, we're going to accumulate more Bitcoin for the future, because I know ultimately it goes up because of the scarcity concept. You know, it's the mathematically fixed, halves every 4 years for how many coins are awarded every 4 years. So it's, as long as demand stays the same, it should continue to rise in price. But I think from the reasons that I've listed, I think it'll be an AI currency, like it's a payment process that they'll use. There'll be a Fed wallet concept. People will be able to hold Bitcoin or fiat, and a lot of people will be sold into holding Bitcoin because it's the inflation hedge. A lot of people don't want to hold cash because they can understand that cash loses value. Bitcoin only go up. That's the sort of narrative that can go, because Bitcoin, it's failed so many times. The crashes, every crash, every time it recovers, it builds faith. I think most people now believe that even if it crashes, that it'll return. So faith and trust is the backing of a currency. Like that's the very backing. Bitcoin doesn't need to be a payment method. Bitcoin as a payment method only works if you have to hold Bitcoin. But if you buy a cup of coffee and then you give Bitcoin and they sell for fiat, that's pointless because you're a net seller then. Like you've given it to someone who sold, the holding hasn't happened. It's been a net loss. The seller has hit the market. This is the opposite. If everyone's, or a large amount of people are holding Bitcoin, then that makes a lot more sense. I think that will become a much bigger thing into the future. I think via these ETFs, it's a great time for Bitcoin. I've been telling my guys that Bitcoin itself, but also the altcoin market, is very good to invest in. I'll be the one that jumps out and says much against the grain, because people only like to buy when it's hot. The concept of the Rothschild, buy when there's blood in the street, even if the blood is your own, people don't really like that sort of an idea. The best investments and the best buys I've ever made are when it hurts to buy. When I click buy and I'm like, fuck, I might have just lost money. Versus the opposite, when I sell, when I'm looking at Lambos, I'm looking at buying a yacht, I'm looking at buying mansions and stuff like that, then I think, oh wait, I've got to get out. That's the time to sell. Peak euphoric. It's always been that way for me. Whenever I buy a Lamborghini or buy something, it's usually a time to exit the market for everything, because that's I'm in great profits, but then I realize many others are in great profits as well. And when others are obliterated, thinking, fuck, it's all over, that's the time to buy, because then you're thinking it hurts to buy. Like that's, again, going against the grain or going against the sheep or the herd or most people is where the money's made. It's where all of the juice is. It's why a long-term holder outperforms a trader, because a long-term holder / DCA, dollar cost averager, who's constantly buying Bitcoin, he buys the highs and the lows, but he has a very long-term outlook. He outperforms a trader because a trader also can be liquidated. They have more stress. They can lose their whole position. They have to watch and babysit their position. It only takes one or two, like a couple of bad trades or a couple of bad trades in a row if you start to revenge trade, and you can lose a lot of money. The only people who make money trading are people who advertise trading platforms and leverage exchanges. We don't do that. I never have done that. But yeah, so over at SRB Crypto, I'm going to drop many more altcoins, but I've dropped quite a few for altcoins that I'm looking at during this sort of a drop. And I think that now is the perfect time to be entering into crypto. If you have a 2-year time frame, you make a lot of money. And guys will come and look back on this and we'll see. I do believe that Bitcoin's going, let's just say, in my view, I'll say above 180K this cycle. This cycle is ultimately into the halving. Although I think that the timing will break and that there won't be a bear market going into the halving like it usually is. The market won't bottom into the halving, I believe. But we'll see how it goes. I talked about it exactly with my members. I talk about a lot of free stuff in my free Telegram. You'll have to join SRB Money and have a good look at that. But yeah, other than that, lads, I look forward to seeing you guys inside. And those who want to learn more about crypto or ask more about crypto, feel free to drop some comments and questions and I'll get back to you. Till next time.